Now what I'll do is that this is a kind of a pretty much static. I want to make this kind of a condition to very much dynamic in the case. For that, what I'll do is I'll use inputs. I'll use the input command, and using the input command, which will enable the graphical user interface where I can actually enter some value here. Okay, so let's see what exactly I mean. For example, let me take the number, and input is a keyword, and let's say I want to enter, I'm asking to enter a value. Okay, this is the prompt. Basically the prompt I want to give here is prompt equal to enter a value. Now if I execute this, the moment you execute this, what you can see is a graphical user interface where it's a enter a value, and there is a one text editor is came here, and you can enter any value you want. Okay, so for example, I can enter some value 2, and what are the variable that you have entered, and that will save into the variable num. You can print num, and you can execute this, and what you can see is the value 2. And one thing you need to notice is that the data type of this is a string. So always remember that input will return string. It doesn't matter whether you have entered some float values, integer, boolean values, or any kind of a text. It always understands that input is a text, and it will always return the value you have entered in the string. Okay, so now using this input, what I'll do is that let me make this condition more dynamic. Let me copy this piece of code and paste it below here, and instead of variable 1, what I'll do is, instead of directly giving it a 5, I'll use this input, and let me write a prompt saying that enter a value, something like this. Now let's execute it, and here what you have is that let me execute 2, and after that I'm getting an error. That's an obvious, we'll get an error. And if you closely look into the error that you're getting, is type error, is saying that the operator, what are the operator that you're seeing here, which is the comparator operator, was not supported between the instance of string and int. That's true. So I intentionally get up this error, that is to explain this kind of case. Whatever you're trying to compare, make sure the data type of this is similar. What it means is that whenever you're trying to compare the two values, both the values should be of same data type. So here you can see that, let's say the variable 1, the data type is string. Why it is a string? We have entered a value as 2. That's what I mentioned here. The variable 1, it's resumes, we actually entered some value 2, but the data type is string, right? And because of the different data type, we can't compare this with 1. So 1 is actually a data type of int. Okay, type of 1, sorry, is int. Since the data type of int, and we can't actually compare string and int, it is always important whenever you're trying to do some comparison operators, the data type of this and this should be similar. At least make sure that if the variable 1 is at least a numerical, could be either a float or integer, but it is always good to have the same data type. Alright, this is why we are getting an error. Now how to solve this error? In order to solve this error, we need to convert data type of variable 1 to integer. How we can do that? We already see the typecasting in the previous lessons. So all you need to do is that we need to use the int. Int is a variable which is actually used to convert the data type of a value into int, but make sure that the value that you're entering should be an int. Okay, so let's say this is my variable 1, which is equal to int of variable 1. Now you can print the data type of variable 1 or var1 equal to var1, or I can say type of var1. Now let's see, execute this, and here I'm getting a graphical user interface. Let's say I've entered the value 3, and here you can see that the type of the variable 1 is int. Now the value is greater than 1. Okay, that's true. Basically the value I have entered is 3. Now the value is greater than 1. That's super cool. So let me try one more case, and here what I'll do is let me enter some value 2.5. Now I'm getting an error. 2.5 is a numeric, then why we are getting an error? That's the problem. Okay, and here, as I already told you in the previous lesson, while doing the typecasting, it is always important to note that the value that you're entering, particularly the int, will only convert the string into int if the value in the string is an integer. If it is not integer, it will throw an error. Now what is the solution for that? The solution for that will be, instead of using int, let's use float. Okay, now this is a very easy case. Now let's execute this, and here let's say we have some value 5.5. Now you can say that this value is greater than 1. Now let me try one more case. Now what if I enter some non-numeric values? For example, if I enter data, now I'm getting an error. Now here what is the error I'm getting is could not convert the string into data. Now obviously the value that were entered is a data, which is a string format, and this one we can't actually convert into numeric. It cannot be converted into float, it cannot be converted into the integer. Okay, so how can we bypass such kind of conditions? If you scroll down and tap the variable 1, which is a data, and in strings there are a lot of methods out there which we can actually use for the condition operators. For example, if you press tab and type is, there you can see the many methods are there which we can use for the string, which is alpha num, is alpha, is ASCII, is decimal, is digit, is identifier, is lower, is numeric, and so on. So alpha num means alpha numeric, is alphabet, is ASCII, and so on. So what we can use is that we can use the function called is numeric, and because this is a string, and this will obviously work only for the string, and we know that the variable 1, that whatever we're getting is a string, and immediately after that you have to put the parentheses and execute it, and what you see is that we can notice it's a false. Okay, that's understandable because the variable 1, so let me print the variable 1 is data and it's not numeric, and that's why we got it's false. And let's look into the one more case, like variable 1 is alpha. Alpha is something that we can use. Basically it will only search for the alphabets, so whether the data contains alphabets, and execute it. And that is true because the variable 1 actually contains the data. So now what we can do is that we can make use of this, and we can put one more condition to validate our data. And for the sake of simplicity, what I can do is I can simply validate the data. Let's say if the value contains 5, and I can use the is numeric condition, and what it will do is that it will return true, which means that the value in the string contains a numeric. But this is not the case works for the float values. So let's say if it is 5.1, it will throw an error saying that there is something error is there, and this is what will not work for the float numbers. And obviously there are different kinds of methods out there which will not actually support for the float numbers. So in such scenario, what we can do is we can actually replace the value dot with something. Let's say here we want to replace the with nothing. Here basically we want to replace with dot with nothing, and let's say we name it as x, and now we can use x dot is numeric, and here we get that is a true. Okay, so that is what we have to do now. So basically we have to validate the multiple cases. So in order to do some data validation, whether it is a numeric, an alpha, and so on. So in order to do some data validation here for the variable 1, what we can do is we can do the following condition here. Condition for doing data validation. What else we can do? The first we need to check if the variable 1 is numeric. So what are the value that you're getting is the variable 1 is numeric. That's what we need to check. And please remember, this will work only for the integer cases. Now let's say if this condition fails. Now what else we can do is we can do one more condition, is replace dot with nothing, empty. So basically I'll name it as empty and check the result is numeric. And if it is true, and again we are checking for int, and if it is true, then what we have to do is that we need to convert into the values, that is the some kind of a float values, and then we need to do some kind of condition. That's what exactly we need to do in this case. Okay, so for data validation, let's quickly do this. We already know what exactly we need to do. Is the first one we need to check is the, let's say this is my condition. Okay, this is my numeric condition. How to check this? Variable 1 dot is numeric. Okay, now let's write the if condition. If numeric condition is satisfies, then what I can do is I can print value is numeric. Elif, let's say elif, if this condition fails, then we have to check for another condition, and another condition is we actually need to replace, oh here we already mentioned that we need to replace the dot with empty and check again. So that's what I can do here is float condition. So float condition is, let's say we have the variable 1. In the variable 1, let's say this is my variable 2. Now let's take this variable 1 dot replace, and I need to replace the dot value with some empty, and now I will check for float condition, which is variable 2 dot is numeric. Now what else I want to do? So this is what my variable 2, this is my condition 2. So check that this is my condition 2. Now what I can do is that I can print value is numeric. Now the value is, let's say this is my float, this is my value is integer. So if everything is fails, then what we can do is we can say print value is string. So that is what the conditions which we have to do in this case. This is what the data validation, simple data validation. Probably we can do even more data validation is also possible, but this is what the simple data validation we can check. What we did here is that we just simply print the values here. But actually the reason why we are doing this exercise is in order to validate my data, and again in order to not to get the error something like this. So which is the float value. So what I'll do is let me copy and paste it this one here. Okay, let me print this outside. And now what I'll do, if it is a numerical condition, then only I'll try to do this float conversion. And also if it is a numeric, I'll try to do the float conversion here. Okay, so now we have the variable 1, and which is what converted into float values. And this is what the condition which was valid now. Okay, now we actually good up to till here, and which means that I actually know that whether the value I'm coming from that is the float or integer. If it is a float value, then actually I'm converting into float. Now with this if condition, I can do the data validation here, and if it is a numeric, then I'm actually converting into the float value, and I'm good here. Now what happens here is that if it is a else condition, I am actually printing saying that the value is string, and also I'm printing the data type is string only. But however, if I execute this, I'll get an error here. For example, if I type the data here, I'll get an error saying that I cannot compare the string and int because the value or variable one I'm getting is the string, and that's what you can see, the value is a string, and I can't able to compare these two operations, and I'm getting an error here. Now how I can bypass this kind of situation? In order to bypass such kind of situation, we can use a nested if condition. So what I can do is, first let me compare the data type, whether the data type I'm getting at the end here is the string or it's a numeric or float value. So for that, what I'll do is, there is a keyword called isInstance, and isInstance is a keyword which will actually compare the data type. So this is the keyword used to compare the data type. Okay, so let's say data condition. All right, so here let me give the object that I'm getting here is type of variable one, and I want to compare whether this data type is string or numeric. So basically str is enough, and first I'm comparing whether the data type is string. If the data type is string, then I want to skip this condition. So that's what I want to do here. If data condition is true, which means that true means the data type of variable one is string. So if this is a string, then what I have to do is I can print something saying that print the variable one is of data type string, hence comparison is not possible. Okay, else, now what I can do, I'll put the else. Now here I can print the variable one is numeric, hence comparison is possible. Okay, now what we have to do is, let me select everything and press tab, and moment you press tab, what happens is all the condition that was coming here will become within the indentation or within the code block of else. Now what happens is, if the data type is not string, then it will move into the else condition, and in the else condition it says that the variable one is in numeric, hence the comparison is possible, and now it's going to execute this, and the execution is only possible only when if it is there in the else code block. So what are the there condition here? This is all the else code block. So make sure all the cases, in order we have to maintain the indentation here, means one tab space, and here you can see there's a two tab space because this is the if else condition. Basically such kind of cases is called nested if conditions. So which means that within the if else condition there is a if else condition, so that's called nested if else condition. Cool, right? Now I think we are good. Execute this. Let's say if I enter data, oh, I'm still getting an error. Oh yeah, so here is the instance. Basically we no need to mention the data type, we just need to provide the variable one and what is the data type we are looking for. So variable one and the data type I'm looking for is string. I think we are good. Now let's execute this and type data, and this is what I'm expecting. They enter the values data and the value is string, and the variable one data type is string, and the variable one data type is string, hence the comparison is not possible. Cool. So let me try one more case. Let's say this is my 5.2, and what happens is this, and the value is float and the type of the variable one is the float, the variable 1 is a numeric, hence the comparison is possible, and the value 1 is greater than 1. Cool, right? So let me delete these cases. Cool, right? So this is how we can do the simple comparison operators. Now hope you have the little bit idea of the if-else condition. In the next lesson, we will take some more examples of if-else condition. I'll see you on that. Until then, happy learning.